What's going on, everybody? And on here, and this is going to be a little bit of a tough love video. We're going to talk about the inconvenient truth that is the current Pokemon market. I see a lot of Poketubers blaming, scalpers and this and that, and some of it's true, some of it's not. But ultimately, when we look at the current market, we have booster boxes that are through the roof. Quite honestly, they're not affordable. And it's not fun if you're trying to buy and enjoy the game. You have Surging at 260, Paldea is going to be 250 at the blink of an eye. Twilight's over 200. SV base is 170. Paradox is about to be 180. Stellar's 195. Two boxes away from that. Obsidian's 195. Temporal's 170. I mean, for the boxes to be this price this early, it prices too many people out of the market. And I know I talk a lot about market pricing, and I tend to be a little bit more on the positive side. It's not because I'm for it or against it. I sell product to members of the Discord and my LGS to customers for fair prices. Um, my business isn't necessarily to sit on product and wait for it to go up. Although we do that, it's really just to support the community and sell product, make a reasonable living, and continue to enjoy what we do. But I think part of the problem here, quite honestly, is the fact that Pokemon has changed their distribution strategy, where stores are getting way less, and big box stores seem to be getting much more product. And we saw that with Prismatic Evolutions. I mean, it was a bloodbath for the stores. I think we got 150 ETBs, so 15 cases across 4 or 5 distributors. Um, and you see the Walmarts, the Best Buys, the GameStops. They're through the roof with items, and the difference, in my opinion, quite honestly, is uh, if distribution was pushing the product through local game stores, you have a human to human touch point. And what I mean with that is you have game store owners who want to take care of their clientele. They can manage or throttle how quickly or how slowly product goes out to make sure that their community gets the product and they're happy. The second you go to a big box store, and I don't mean this in a demeaning manner, but you're dealing with corporations who, quite honestly, don't give two shits who they sell it to. They just want to sell it. They just want to churn it. They have shareholders to report to, and quite honestly, you have employees who don't care. Whether I sell a product, whether I don't sell a product, uh, that's not what I measure on in my day to day job. Do I want to get in the middle of a hornet's nest of people trying to clear the shelves? Of course not. Why would I do that? That's not my job. So, yeah, this entire situation is 100% Pokemon's fault. And, I don't want to say it's the fact that they've underprinted, even though, I think that's certainly part of the case, and nobody would argue with that. But I think it's the fact that the way they're distributing the product is what is causing the problem. There's no second, third wave to distribution because distribution is getting choked off as well. I've talked to two of our distributors, and they mentioned that their product has declined each of the last 2 sets, how much they've gotten based on earlier sets. Now, I think part of that is there's a much wider net, but that wider net comes from the customers of the individual distributors. There's not a wider net of distributors. I mean, there's only so many distributors that Pokemon's selling to. That's just the way it works. So they have to be actively taking either the total pie shrinking, which is not the case, or the allocation of that pie is changing. And as I just mentioned, it's changing to go to big box stores. Now, if you're Pokemon, it makes sense in concept because you have a wider reach of touch points. People going into a local game store, it is an extremely limited niche of folks from a marketing perspective. But the number of people going to Walmart, Target, Best Buy, GameStop, I mean, you're touching a very high percentage of the total population of potential existing and new customers in the US. So from a marketing perspective, it makes all the sense in the world. The problem is when it comes to the execution of it, it can't possibly succeed for the reasons I just mentioned. The big box stores don't, there's no human to human interaction. They basically, their entire business model is to churn product and as quickly as they can and move on to the next thing at the lowest price. Whereas the LGS again has that human touch point that is now missing, and it's made everything mechanical. And then you have the stores who need the product, so you have all the scalping and bots buying product from big box stores, and the big box stores don't give a shit because if I'm a big box store, the quicker I sell the product, the better. I don't care if I get my price. I want to sell it more quickly because that's what I'm compensated on. So this is a Pokemon created problem because of their flawed vision on how distribution is I guess supposed to work in their eyes. So what this effectively does is now you have you have booster boxes that people can't touch, and this is a byproduct of pretty much just a shortage of supply across the gamut, driven by an unexpected and overwhelming surge in demand, which isn't going to fall off a cliff like it did with COVID. So anybody who says it's a bubble and the bubble's going to pop, it's not going to pop quickly. If it deflates, it's going to be very, very slowly, very, very methodical. And I mean, we've seen how much 151 Crown Zenith is pumped into the market. If people demand the product, they're going to take the product, they're going to consume it, and the price isn't going to go down. And, again, as I've said this before, if distribution increases the price with which they're selling the product to local game stores or whomever, there's no air pocket of pricing for people to drop the price. So the price of the product can't possibly go down unless the demand goes to zero, which isn't going to happen. So now we have a never-ending death spiral of the situation that we have now. There's no end in sight. And I know some folks think that Pokemon can print as much of this and dump it on the market as possible. A, they can't. B, they don't want to. So if they wanted to, and they could, they would have done it already. Because, I mean, this has been going on for a reasonable amount of time. So that brings me to my next point. You have a lot of people who are frustrated with this. They're priced out. I mean, I personally, I wouldn't buy a Surging Sparks booster box at $260. I'm never going to open it because I don't want to light $260 on fire. And if I get lucky, that's great. I don't really care. But in my view, there's not a whole lot of upside because everything's kind of topped out. And the risk of the unknown, which is Pokemon reprinting a bunch of this, it's going to linger in the back of my head because I lived through COVID and I lived through Sword and Shield. So I'm going to look for some other way to play in the market. And I mean me as the general population. So I'm going to go and I'm going to look at singles. So I'm going to look at singles that I like and I'm going to buy them. So you have a lot of the talking heads on YouTube complaining about people buying out cards. Buying out cards is a byproduct of people can't get and can't buy booster boxes, so they decide to buy cards. It's the market. And it's not like they're scalping. They're buying the product at a market price in the secondary market. It's not like they're buying singles from one of the big box stores at MSRP. It doesn't work that way. So the whole feigned rage, in my mind, it's so childish and misplaced. It's kind of hilarious. But when people who can't afford booster boxes can't locate booster boxes, they buy 5 copies of a card, 10 copies of a card. The value of the card inherently goes up because the supply of the card goes down, the demand goes up, and if enough people want the card, this is what we're seeing across the board with literally every card in the Scarlet and Violet block, because there's not enough product out there. So if you have the product, you're happy because the value of your cards have gone up. If you're buying the product, you're clearly happy because you wanted to buy the product at that price. And if you aren't buying and you aren't selling, you're happy because it's the pure entertainment and the drama of the back and forth. So everybody wins in this scenario when it comes to people buying singles. But ultimately, the cost of the hobby needs to come down. I don't have any idea how that's going to happen, quite honestly, because I don't see a path for it to come down with the current demand. And unless we're going to see a lot of booster boxes, And quite honestly, if we do see a lot of booster boxes, I I quite honestly still don't see it coming down because it's going to get just eaten up so quickly. And with the ancillary products, the bundles and the EX boxes and all that stuff coming out, that's great. But that just makes the booster boxes even more collectible and more rare, which is just going to turbocharge these things going up even more. So, at the end of the day, it's not the LGS's fault. It's not the scalper's fault. It's not, people buying cards out's fault. It's the Pokemon company's fault because they made a strategic error in shifting distribution from the player and people friendly LGSs to the big box stores who don't give two shits about anybody buying the product, and there's no human interaction. And quite honestly, that is the problem that we're facing right now. So feel free to disagree in the comments. But guys, like, subscribe, join the Discord, and have a great night.